Parliament has returned. A new speaker was elected. We had the throne speech and so much more. To discuss some of the details is our parliamentary reporter and Toronto Sun columnist Brian Lilley, joining us once again from Toronto. Brian, what was on the Trudeau Liberals' agenda?
A lot of the throne speech focusing in on COVID-19 and getting us through the rest of the pandemic, not really a big surprise there. And then, of course, the Prime Minister's perhaps his only other issue, which is climate change, talking about climate change constantly over the past few weeks, reconciliation, and that is about it. You know, not a lot of focus on issues that are affecting the government, affecting Canadian industry. It's all about climate change, COVID, and reconciliation. I'm not sure how this plays into where the Canadian public is sitting, but that tells you where the government's head is at.
Yeah, I mean, let's focus in on the economy, getting more Canadians working here to stimulate the economy. We'll talk about more of that in just a moment here. Now, Brian, last summer, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called the election the most important one since 1945. Now, the election was held just 2 months ago. Why wait 2 months to bring the MPs back and then only have them sit for a couple of weeks? It kind of makes it look like, what, Parliament's not that important?
Yeah, I don't know why we had the most important election since 1945, and then it's 64 days after the election before the MPs set foot back in the House of Commons. So on Monday, they had to elect a speaker. Tuesday, it's all about the throne speech. Wednesday, it's the reply to the throne speech and getting pro forma business out of the way. You got to set up committees, and then they're out of there on December 17th. Now, I don't think they'll sit as long as December 17th. You know this as well as I do, Hal. Parliament, you know, they've got the schedule. They rarely sit as late as they claim they're going to. So, you know, we're looking at 3.5 weeks, with at least the first week to the first 3 to 4 days at least being just all about, I mean, it's important work, setting up the committees, all the things that Parliament needs to function. But, you know, if this was the most important election since 1945, why wait 64 days? It's been 153 days since Parliament sat. We've got the fourth wave of COVID going on in the middle of that. We've got all kinds of economic issues, a protectionist government in the States. We've got the flooding in BC. And this guy's just waiting around. And then he says, we'll rush to it. We'll get through a pile of legislation. But it's not. He's not moving on issues like we talked about, the economy or inflation or the protectionist measures from the United States. He's working on shoving through the conversion therapy ban bill that would have passed if his own government didn't, not know how to run the schedule in the last session. So he says these things are super duper important, but in reality, he doesn't act that way.
Now, there have been talks of a coalition between the Liberals and the NDP, which were denied, I guess, some of the talks. But now there's talk that the NDP will work with the Liberals to fast-track the legislation, some of the legislation you were discussing earlier. It sounds like, Brian, they're in fact actually working together.
Yeah, I mean, they're in a relationship without wanting to admit it. So Jagmeet Singh is basically telling Justin Trudeau, you pass through these things like the conversion therapy pen bill that I really want through, and I'll back you. It's not a formal coalition, and we're not going to see New Democrat MPs get cabinet positions, but it does seem to be an informal working arrangement with the NDP to make things go faster rather than slower. And then the government gets to say, see, we did all these things really quickly. Well, we could be doing a lot more than that. They're just, they're playing make-believe when it comes to how important Parliament is. Justin Trudeau, if you recall, sees his job as ceremonial. That's not what I'm saying. That's what Mary Dawson, the former ethics commissioner, said. So he likes the throne speech. He likes the pomp and circumstance. He likes going to the world conferences. He doesn't like getting down to the nitty-gritty of issues that affect the daily lives of Canadians. That's not of importance to him. It's the showmanship.
Now, Brian, many have been calling for more help for BC in light of all of the flooding and the mudslides, so many power outages. In fact, one BC mayor wants the Army called in to help out. What kind of assistance is Ottawa offering those in BC dealing with so much devastation?
Yeah, it's difficult for me to know from my vantage point whether they're getting the right help or enough help. I'll tell you this. Last week, it was Conservative MPs who were singing the praises of Bill Blair, Conservative MPs like Brad Viss and Ed Fast, who work in the area and said, look, now's not the time for politics. It's all hands on deck. They were praising Emergency Preparedness Minister Bill Blair for having a briefing for them and for getting the help they need. They have sent in helicopters. They have sent in different logistics help. A lot of the help that will really be needed and that the federal government can offer, well, we need to wait for the waters to stop. And, if you've been following the weather forecast, that's not the case yet. So it appears that BC is through the worst of it. What these next few days will bring with the snow, the rain, they're calling it an atmospheric river. This is a new term to me. All of this could change, but the waters need to go down. But yeah, the one mayor, it's near Merritt, British Columbia, asking for the army to be brought in to help reconnect a sewer system that isn't working. The mayor of Merritt, by the way, telling her residents that yes, you'll be able to go back into your homes in a staged fashion. Most of those residents were evacuated to Kelowna and Kamloops, but she said, look, you won't be able to use your toilet very much. You can't drink the water. It's a boil water advisory. And if you go back, just be aware there is no working hospital in your community anymore. That's the level of the devastation.
Yeah, and a lot of BC officials are also talking about the gas shortage right now, allowing people to come to the pumps, but a maximum 30 litres per fill-up. Brian, in order for an economy to flourish, it's so important to support many aspects of the economy. Our energy sector has been struggling, as many have felt that the Liberals have not been supporting our oil and gas sector. Now, other industries apparently feel like they're being ignored, including autos and potatoes. Tell me more.
Yeah, the potato one is a bit surprising if you don't follow agricultural issues, but there is a claim by the Americans that Canadian potatoes from Prince Edward Island, where they elect a lot of Liberals down there, where they're saying it has a fungus on the potato. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency has banned exports, and that had Liberal Premier Dennis King furious at Justin Trudeau. So, every time we talk about something like the auto industry, which isn't getting love from Trudeau right now, I hear from people in Western Canada saying, yeah, well, to heck with you. Do you see how they react? And you guys keep electing them. Well, first off, it's not me electing Justin Trudeau, I can assure you that. But secondly, Dennis King is a Liberal, and he is furious because the Liberal government was agreeing with the American position. This is something that scientists, food scientists in this country, agricultural experts say it has no merit, the American position, but they're standing by it. Then, of course, on the auto side, last week, Trudeau was in Washington to try and stop this bill that could devastate Ontario's auto industry. Did he get any love from Joe Biden? No. The day Trudeau arrived and was holding meetings with congressional leaders, Biden was in Detroit holding a news conference promoting the very tax measures and bill that Trudeau wants stopped. And it would have passed on the Thursday while Trudeau was still there if it wasn't for the Republicans holding a filibuster and talking out the clock. Bill's going to pass, it's going to get into law, and Joe Biden's doing nothing about it. And Justin Trudeau, what he is doing is a little bit too late.
Now, speaking of U.S. President Joe Biden, one of his first acts in office, as you may remember, Brian, was to issue the order to kill the Keystone XL pipeline. Now, the company behind the pipeline, TC Energy, is suing over that decision. What kind of compensation are they looking for?
They're looking for $15 billion over what they call a roller coaster, a policy roller coaster over 13 years. Now, if you remember, it was former President Barack Obama who just kept putting off the decision. Hillary Clinton, when she was still his Secretary of State, had signed off and given the permits. But then after that happened, and TC Energy, or TransCanada, it was known back then, they said, okay, great, we get to go ahead. And the Obama White House said, no, hold on, we want to do another review. Held the review, eventually said no. When Trudeau came into power, then Donald Trump approved it very soon after being elected, and construction began. And that is probably why TC Energy will be successful at this. They were given the permits, construction began, everything's underway, and then they get the permit yanked. This is about politics, guiding policy. Sure, that's fine, but there is a an actual cost to this for TC Energy. So they're asking for $15 billion, but they're not looking to restart this pipeline. That is something that the company has made clear. They're not going to do it anymore.
Wow. There's still some issues, Brian, going on with the federal Conservatives. Party leader Aaron O'Toole kicked out renegade Senator Denise Batters, but Tory senators say she can continue to sit with them. Now, the Liberals must just love hearing about any infighting going on behind Conservative Party lines.
Absolutely, they do. And it is any bad day for Aaron O'Toole is a good day for Justin Trudeau. And Aaron O'Toole keeps having a lot of bad days. Even on the first day back of Parliament, Liberal House Leader Mark Holland was able to get a lot of headlines talking about, well, are the Conservatives really vaccinated? Are they fully vaccinated? There's too many medical exemptions. It's statistically improbable. And so on these headlines go. And, Senator Batters, her future being discussed by the National Council, and they're going to look at the petition that she started. All of these things are ongoing. Look, I think Aaron O'Toole, shortly after the election, needed to fire some people. He needed to fire the people behind policies that were unpopular. He needed to give something to the base. So fire the guy behind the policy on the carbon tax, Dan Robertson. He's a nice guy, but sometimes you have to take one for the boss. That should have happened early on. He should have called the review, but he should have also been seen acting. Instead, he called the review, and then he went quiet for a while. And that allowed this vacuum to fill up with people who don't like him. A lot of this is being driven by people loyal to Andrew Scheer. That's the camp that Senator Batters is in. So we'll see if there's more of them coming out. But O'Toole has to get a handle on this, or it's going to be death by 1,000 cuts, and he will no longer be leader of the Conservative Party.
I was just asking, how much momentum is there right now, to replace Aaron O'Toole? And you and I talked about it in the past, but who are potential successors for O'Toole? Perhaps Pierre Poilievre. Many people feel he's very intelligent, he's got the energy, but he doesn't really want the gig. So who else would be available? Who wants the job?
Yeah, there's nobody waiting in the wings at the moment. I don't see Peter MacKay coming back to try a third kick at the can, or I guess fourth if you go back to him leading the PCs back in the day. And there's a lot of people saying, well, we'd be in a better position with Pierre Poilievre, or would be a better position if Peter MacKay had won. Okay, that's nice speculation, but it's like debating whether the Stones or the Beatles are the better act. It's all speculative. He's the leader now. What are you doing to improve things? And right now, the only thing that is improving is how Justin Trudeau looks by comparison. And we'll see if there's actually momentum behind this. If there's more than a few disgruntled people. Remember, a lot of the headlines said that Jason Kenney going into the UCP meeting was done for, and that would be obvious at the convention. Didn't happen. Jason Kenney still leader of the UCP, and a lot of the rebels that wanted to take him out looking like they have egg on their face today.
How about Stephen Harper coming out of retirement to lead the federal Conservatives?
Stephen Harper is about to start an investment fund worth billions of dollars, and he's going to be at the top of it. So that tells you the kind of money he's making now, and I don't think he has any interest in going back into elected politics.
Brian, the Liberals recently announced that they will not be sending anyone back to ROXHAM Road. Now, that's the illegal border crossing which saw tens of thousands of people cross prior to the pandemic. What's the reasoning behind this?
The reason behind it is that they just simply don't believe in the rules at the border. If you remember, this became a place where 18,000 people a year were crossing for several years. They said that they were going to crack down on it. They brought it down to 16,000 people a year crossing at ROXHAM Road, this border crossing between Quebec and New York State. These were people who were claiming refugee status and filling up the system, but they were people who were already in a third country. The Liberals, they just don't seem to want to abide by the international agreement that they have with the United States on safe third parties. You're supposed to turn people back. They seem to want to make this a cultural political wedge issue because the Conservatives are against it, and they know that they can get a lot of people riled up saying, well, the Conservatives are anti-immigrant. No, these are people who are quite literally jumping the queue. For a while, people were flying in from different parts of the world, landing at New York City's JFK or LaGuardia airports, and then immediately were transported to the Canada-US border. They couldn't get in through Canada's generous immigration system, so they were coming in this way. We're going to start seeing tens of thousands of people coming across there. And for anyone that says this is not illegal, that this is completely legal, just read the signs, read the law, and listen to the warnings that the RCMP, permanently stationed there for several years, give out to people before they cross over. They tell them it's illegal, and then they arrest them when they come over.
Political reporter and Toronto Sun columnist Brian Lilley, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you, Hal.